Welcome, guys, to How the Frack We Got Here, a show that takes the news and events of the week and try to make sense out of it all. I'm your host, the most Will Buchanan, and on this show, we simply are all about the facts. There are plenty of news stations out there that simply want to do anything short but inform you. Here at How the Frack We Got Here, that's all we believe in. We go up to the left, we go up to the right, we go up to the middle of independence. We go after all sides because there's more than one side of a story to everything, and you need to know it all in order to actually formulate your own opinion. And that's what we try to do here at How the Frack We Got Here. Thanks for listening, and hold on, it's gonna be fun.
All right, guys, today's date, September the 1st, 2021. Time is flying by, and this is How the Frack We Got Here. I'm your host, the most Will Buchanan. On How the Frack We Got Here, we do take the events of the week so far and try to make sense out of all, as this is our midweek review. Before I do get started, we are a family-friendly podcast. We do try to watch our language, but sometimes words do fly, and sometimes we may show things that might be too intense for young viewers, so viewer discretion is advised. Aside from that, welcome. Well, I would be remiss if the first thing we don't talk about is the exact same thing, that Mother Nature is once again rearing her head, and one poor state seems to be devastated from it.
The video this morning shows a woman being pulled from her car as floodwaters rise in one New Orleans street. She was rescued by an off-duty Italian naval officer. Several people across the Gulf Coast had to be rescued from rising floodwaters. The number of rescues is expected to rise, especially as roads are cleared and crews are given the okay to access parts of Louisiana ravaged by Ida. Nicole Mall from the American Red Cross joins us now. Nicole, good morning. Thank you so much for giving us a little bit of your time this morning. Now, you're on the ground, I believe, in Baton Rouge. So what's your team seeing in terms of rescues right now?
You know, what we're seeing right now is we're caring for about 2,000 people who've been affected across Texas, Louisiana, and Mississippi. So what that means is those are families who couldn't stay at home, right, who had to evacuate. Maybe they've had power outages. Hurricane Ida is going to go down in history as a very, very significant storm. And our priority mission right now is to really take care of these people who've been affected. We're seeing the footage. We're seeing the damage. We're talking with folks. And the greatest thing that we can do right now is make sure we are here to shelter and care for these folks who've been affected by Ida.
And now, Nicole, I mean, this is the second year in a row that Louisiana's been hit by a major hurricane, with Hurricane Laura last year. Of course, we all remember Katrina back in 2005. How's the damage like this time around, and what's it like responding to the same area a second year in a row? How are people doing?
Having the chance to talk with some of the folks who are staying with the Red Cross, it's interesting because the one common thread that we're finding in this is that Louisiana is home. And so while each storm takes a very unique toll on a person, what we're finding is people, this is their home, right? So as long as they're here and as resilient and as strong as they are, we're here to take care of them. And, you know, to see these back-to-back storms, just to see, history being made time and time again, it's just absolutely devastating. And for us, our focus to be able to care for these people, even when things feel uncertain, and to see this damage, it's heartbreaking.
Absolutely. And Nicole, what are they telling you they need right now? What's the biggest thing on the ground that these people are needing?
You know, I think from our conversations, it's don't forget about Louisiana. Do not forget about Mississippi, right? This is home for people, right? And when we as the Red Cross come here, it's to help shelter, to help take care of people. We're waiting for access from our our parish and our state partners that we can get food, get relief supplies. But for the folks staying in our care, we want to make this top of mind, because for every family who's been affected by a disaster, this is the biggest disaster in their life. And, if you're looking to support, you can visit redcross.org, become a volunteer, make a donation, and we're going to be here as long as needed.
Nicole Mall, thank you so much for what you're doing. And again,
So we all know that Hurricane Ida is definitely ravaging. Unfortunately, with hurricanes, they seem to love Louisiana a lot. So definitely for all those, if we were able to get out of the storm, then it's great. But there's still hundreds and thousands of more who are still without power. and hopefully relief is on the way. And like I said, if you do want to help out, there's multiple ways, especially with the American Red Cross. So you can definitely donate your time or money or whatever you can do to help out those that are less fortunate right now that are trying to just build their lives back together. Because if you've never been in a hurricane before or never experienced one, trust me, they're not fun at the same time. The devastation that's left behind screams volumes. And trust me, Louisiana, she's a strong state, but she's tired, to say the least. However, moving right along, I did want to cover the next story, which again, I called it. I cannot say it enough that I called it. And again, we should also be very alarmed that the Supreme Court has done nothing yet.
Majority of abortions in Texas are now banned after the Supreme Court did not rule on an emergency appeal to keep a new law from taking effect.
The law known as Senate Bill 8 prohibits abortions after 6 weeks. It also allows people to sue abortion providers and people who help others get them. These lawsuits could win plaintiffs up to $10,000 with, of course, added attorney fees. Even before the law took effect, Texas abortion clinics had been turning patients away. Since mid-August, 11 Planned Parenthood clinics were not scheduling patients after September 1st.
Let's bring in NBC News legal analyst Danny Savalos, who joins us to help break down this decision. So first of all, Danny, what does this mean for Roe v. Wade? Does this chip away at it at all?
It doesn't mean that Roe v. Wade is overturned. It doesn't necessarily even chip away at Roe v. Wade yet. This is a complicated battle of injunctive relief and asking courts to stay things before they go forward. But the key at this stage is about preserving the status quo until the ultimate case can be decided. In fact, technically an injunction could still be issued by a court, or including the Supreme Court. But all this means is that the law has been allowed to go into effect, which does surprise me, because if you think about what the status quo was before the law, it was a scheme consistent with Roe v. Wade. The law as it exists now is not really consistent with Roe v. Wade. So it was a surprise to me that the Supreme Court didn't decide to weigh in and at least hit the pause button until the case could be decided.
Danny, we want to talk more about the Supreme Court and their role here. But first, let's talk about what this means. I mentioned that the law essentially lets anyone sue abortion providers or people who helped someone get an abortion. Can you break down how that works? I mean, does it really mean anyone?
This law is either brilliant or diabolical, depending on which side of the debate you're on, because its proponents have effectively tried to insulate it from challenge. It's not the government, the state government, that's enforcing the law. Instead, like Wyatt Earp, they have deputized citizens to file private lawsuits against anyone, not just who conducts an abortion or performs an abortion, but aids, abets, assists in an abortion, hitting them where it can really devastate them, their pocketbook. And so the financial disincentive now is clear. Perform an abortion at your own financial risk. And what citizen wouldn't want, who's not, doesn't even have to be involved in the case or know the abortion provider, have any relationship, they can just march into court and basically get a free $10,000 if they file suit. Who wouldn't want to get involved in that? I mean, well, a lot of people, but there are a lot of people that would want to file suit and make some fast money.
So, Danny, at this point, do we know what is the next major legal battle over abortion in the Supreme Court?
There's going to be a lot of procedural battles going forward in the immediate future. The Supreme Court could technically still issue an injunction, but because they declined to act, the law goes into effect for now. So we are probably months, maybe even years away from the Supreme Court issuing a final decision when this case gets before them and they consider it properly. But what's controversial here is that this is part of what's been called the shadow docket, the Supreme Court issuing essentially opinions or decisions on cases without a reasoned, 100-page explanation of why they arrived at that decision, which kind of runs counter to the vision we all have of the Supreme Court, which is they decide cases, but at least they tell us how they arrived there.
Right. Danny,
Didn't I sit here and say this? I said it. I've been saying it. I have sat there and said, watch what's going to happen when the conservative-leaning Supreme Court, and I sat there and said this when Kavanaugh got in, when Amy Coney Barrett got ramrodded in, and that since they now have a conservative-leaning Supreme Court, I sat there and said that Roe versus Wade would eventually get challenged. And it had to be in a Republican-dominated state, Texas, who would be actually putting this law saying, hey, after 6 weeks, abortions are outlawed. A woman doesn't know she's pregnant within 6 weeks. And yet now, since Governor Greg Abbott, who again is amazing in all his wondrous, stupendous ideas, has signed this into law, so now abortion clinics cannot operate. Which again, I've never understood this, and I don't care how in the world you can try to explain this. This is an attack on women. Women's bodies are theirs to choose, and I've been saying this all the time on podcasts. Agree with you can disagree with me all you want to, it's fine, but Roe versus Wade just ensures that abortions are legal. The actual process is legal. That's all it's meant to be there for. If you don't want to get an abortion, that's fine. But if you're going to cry about, what about all the unborn fetuses they can't talk about, they can't defend themselves? There's plenty of orphanages and foster homes where kids can use a forever home. Instead of you being a bleeding heart about something you'll never see, how about you go help out somebody that can see you and can benefit from you, since you want to be Mother Teresa to everybody? The thing about it is, guys, I have been saying this the entire time, that a woman's body is her choice. Whatever she decides to do with it. If she chooses to carry a child, cool. If she doesn't want to carry a child, cool. I will still sleep fine because it's her choice and consequence she has to live with. That's the thing that we in this country just can't seem, well, some of us, I won't say all of us, but some of us can't seem to get the grip on that. That a woman decides whether or not she wants to carry a child. She should not be forced to carry a child in any shape or form. If she decides to do it, cool. If she doesn't decide to do it, that's fine too. But the fact that we're sitting here and we're saying, well, we're doing the right thing because, again, this is a conservative religious opinion, nothing more, that's been made into law, which again tells you exactly the way our country's going. But like I said, but the reporter is right. The Supreme Court could still turn around and still say this is outlawed due to Roe versus Wade. But I sat there and told you guys that they were going to challenge it. I sat there and told you guys that they are going to do something that's going to be underhanded and diabolical, and I sat there and said it, and now Texas is leading the charge. And if you don't think that you don't think that other states are going to try to ramrod this and make other state law abortions, you are crazy, because they will try. Once they've seen Texas do it, which in my case, I've said it the best, I don't know what it is between Texas, Tennessee, Kentucky, and Florida. It is the biggest game of hold my beer when it comes to stupid laws being made. And trust me, this abortion law is definitely that. It is completely, it's not even worth it, and yet we're dealing with it. But again, we'll follow that story as it goes along. Moving right along, guys, I did want to talk about this in breaking news in the state of Elijah McClain, that they did hand out indictments for the officers and the EMT responsible for that young man's murder. And I know they said death, but it was murder, so I'm going to call it what it is.
He died following a physical encounter with Aurora police officers and Aurora Fire Rescue paramedics the night of August 24, 2019. In June 2020, by executive order, the governor appointed me to act as the state's prosecutor, investigate, and if the evidence permits, prosecute potential criminal activity by individuals who caused the death of Elijah McClain. Our department did not seek this investigation. After we were appointed to take on the important responsibility, we took it very seriously. At the time, I said our investigation would be guided by a commitment to the facts, by a thorough and diligent work, and would be worthy of public trust and confidence in our criminal justice system. These remain our guiding principles for this matter. As you know, there was an initial investigation into Mr. McClain's death, which was limited. Our department had the option merely to review the record of that effort or undertake additional fact-finding to inquire further into the events surrounding Mr. McClain's death. We decided to take the latter course because whenever a person dies after an encounter with law enforcement, the community deserves a thorough investigation. Mr. McLean's family deserves it, and justice requires it. As our department conducted its work, it became clear that we needed the grand jury and its enhanced investigative powers to obtain documents and compel testimony from witnesses that would otherwise we'd not be able to obtain using ordinary investigative techniques. Over the last year, our team faced considerable challenges because the statewide grand jury didn't meet for a lengthy period of time on account of the COVID-19 pandemic. In December 2020, we were finally able to engage the statewide grand jury to investigate Mr. McLean's death. On January 8, 2021, my department announced that we had opened this grand jury investigation. That process continued until last Thursday, when the grand jury concluded its work and returned its findings. We are announcing the grand jury's findings made last week today because we needed time to contact Mr. McLean's family, his mother, Shanine McLean, and father, Luane Mosley, and to contact those under investigation for their actions. At the outset, a few points about the statewide grand jury process bear mention. First, a grand jury is made up of impartial citizens who are called from the community to serve. The grand jury is a core part of our criminal justice system. The citizens who participate in this undertaking take their roles and responsibilities very seriously. Those who serve on the statewide grand jury not only are serious and diligent in their work, but they also invest considerable time and effort to serve the public. They deserve our gratitude for their work. Second, under state law, grand jury activities and materials must be kept confidential. What can be disclosed and what I will share today are the relevant facts and circumstances that we are authorized to share. We recognize that many people, including Mr. McLean's family, concerned citizens, members of the media, and others, have had many questions regarding this grand jury process and its activities. Over the course of the process, we had, and we continue to have, a legal and ethical obligation to maintain the confidentiality and integrity of this investigation. We appreciate the public's patience as we conducted and continue to conduct our work. Late last Thursday, after careful and thoughtful deliberation, the grand jury returned a 32-count indictment against Aurora police officers Randy Rodema and Nathan Woodyard, former Aurora police officer Jason Rosenblatt, and Aurora Fire Rescue paramedics Jeremy Cooper and Peter Chikuniak for their alleged conduct on the night of August 24th, 2019, that resulted in the death of Mr. McLean. Each of the 5 defendants face 1 count of manslaughter and 1 count of criminally negligent homicide. Officers Rodema and Rosenblatt also face, each of them, a count of second-degree assault with intent to cause bodily injury and caused serious bodily injury to Mr. McLean. Both also face 1 count of a crime of violence related to the second-degree assault bodily injury charge. In addition to the manslaughter and criminally negligent homicide charges, paramedics Cooper and Chikuniak also face 1 count second-degree assault with intent to cause bodily injury and caused bodily injury, 1 count second-degree assault for recklessly causing serious bodily injury by means of a deadly weapon, ketamine, 1 count second-degree assault for a purpose other than lawful medical or therapeutic treatment, intentionally causing stupor, unconsciousness, or other physical or mental impairment or injury to Mr. McLean by administering a drug, ketamine, without consent. Cooper and Chikuniak also face 2 counts of crimes of violence for each of the assault charges. At this moment, my department is filing the indictment in Adams County District Court. The indictment will be unsealed. It is important to remind everyone that a grand jury indictment is a formal accusation based on a determination of probable cause that an individual committed a crime under Colorado law. All defendants are presumed innocent until proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. Our department has the solemn duty to prosecute this case. Make no mistake, we recognize that this case will be difficult to prosecute. These types of cases always are. Our goal is to seek justice for Elijah McClain, for his family and friends, and for our state. In so doing, we advance the rule of law and the commitment that everyone is accountable and equal under the law. Many of you will have questions as this case proceeds. We understand that, and we want you to understand that we are limited in what we can say and will do our talking in court. We thank you in advance for your patience as this case goes forward.
Okay, for all those who don't remember, Elijah McClain was the young man that was actually stopped by officers, in which it did become into a provocation where they did have him arrested on the ground, and the EMT decided to give him ketamine. For all those who know what ketamine is, it is a very powerful sedative, one that shouldn't really be given to humans unless under extreme duress. In this case, they did give him ketamine, which led to complication of Elijah McClain dying, which again, I know I said murdered because who in the world gives somebody ketamine to calm them down in a tense situation with law enforcement? So the officers there will be facing involuntary manslaughter along with the EMT and several other counts, but we will follow that story as it goes along. Just because I was still wondering what they were going to do with that story. At first they said that they were not going to bring it, they were thinking of not bringing any charges, and now they decided to change their minds. Not sure, but again, the indictment does lead to a court case, and we hope that more time will be given to the officers because as of lately, track records have said otherwise about these officers actually looking at longer jail sentences for killing black people. I'm just saying. So, but we will follow that story as it goes along. Moving right along, guys. Everybody wants to know about the COVID situation. Well, you should be concerned because it's not getting any better.
Coronavirus emergency, an alarming rise in hospitalizations across the country, and now a number of children getting sick has doctors especially concerned this morning. Ariel Reshef has the latest on this. Good morning, Ariel.
Good morning to you, Cecilia. This is what has health experts so concerned. More than 101,000 people are hospitalized with COVID-19 across this country right now. That puts us on pace to surpass our January peak of 125,000 people hospitalized at one time, and raising concern as well. 300 children are now being admitted to the hospital with COVID every single day. And of course, as hospitalizations increase, so is the death toll. 900 people are losing their lives to COVID-19 every single day in this country. That's up 370% over the past 7 weeks. But there is some good news on the vaccine front. Since the full FDA authorization of the Pfizer vaccine just 1 week ago, 470,000 people are getting their first shot every day. That's up 17% from the week prior. Cecilia?
Yeah, that is good news. We love hearing that. But we are now seeing this debate over vaccine requirements heat up, especially, Ariel, on college campuses.
That's right, Cecilia. Colleges are taking more and more action against students who fail to comply with their vaccination policies. The latest, Virginia Tech has now unenrolled 134 students who either did not provide proof of vaccination or proof that they have a religious or medical exemption. This follows the University of Virginia just several days ago, which took a similar move against 200 students who did not comply with their vaccination.
Yeah, so again, guys, COVID situations aren't getting any better now that we're starting to see more cases, and especially for schools, which again, schools are still somehow in effect while allowing their students to go into school. I know here in Nashville, we had over 1,000 public school students that were sent home on quarantine, and then on a neighboring county, Sumner County, had well over another 1,000 students that were being quarantined because of cases popping up. And I keep saying this the entire time because I know that vaccination rates are increasing. But again, it goes back to there's still a great number of you guys out there who have yet to be vaccinated and have yet to understand that you need to start wearing masks everywhere. It's going to get to the point, like I said before, lockdowns are not too far off if these numbers and cases cannot get down, especially for those students that are going to college, because it's amazing that you're still refusing to get the vaccine, but you got to get shots for everything else and prove you got to get shots before you're allowed to enroll, which again amazes me so how they can act in such a manner. But then again, I'm just not surprised. I'm not surprised at all. But also, what is surprising, guys, is the fact of the matter is that another person is entering the GOP Senate race, and I wish I could make this up for all those that just want to know, because again, the Senate bids are starting to happen. I sat there and told you guys this, and I feel like Nostradamus right now. I sat there and said that 2022 was going to be a hotbed year for Democrats, which is why they're trying to hurry up into these next couple of months and really get things out the way. Because again, guys, the primaries are, I'm sorry, that's wrong. The Senate and House, the Republicans races are next year, the midterms, which means that Republicans will be looking to knock out the slim majority that Democrats have. If they can get the House, cool. If they can get the Senate, even better. Why? Because that'll railroad anything the Democrats are trying to push. That's what they're trying to get this whole Senate thing being pushed through right now. So, with that being said, the GOP is struggling to find out what they can do, considering the fact that they wildly ignored how everybody would react toward them in order to get the Democrats the Senate. However, Mr. Herschel Walker, because if you follow Herschel Walker, well, let's just be honest, he's that friend that every racist and bigot says they have a black friend. He's the black friend. Want to know why? I'll tell you why. Because Herschel Walker is announcing his bid for the Senate, for one of the Senate seats in Georgia. And I wish I could make this up. He actually put in his bid that he'll be running for senator, a former football player who has no history of politics or running a business or anything else that remotely qualifies him to be a politician, is now taking urging from former President Donald Trump to turn around and run for Georgia's Senate, for one of Georgia's Senate seats. Keep in mind, Georgia has 2 Senate seats. And of course, between Raphael Warnock, and it escapes me right now what the other person's name is. That's kind of sad. But again, between Raphael Warnock and Joe Fornell, there we go. I couldn't think of his name for a second. But he actually wants to run against him. Now, of course, this is the same person who sat there and said this.
Singer or politician. I'm Herschel Walker. Most of you know me as a football player, but I'm also a father, a man of faith, and a very good judge of character. I've known Donald Trump for 37 years, and I don't mean just casual ran into him from time to time. I'm talking about a deep personal friendship. I watched him as an owner of a professional football team. Right after he bought the team, he set out to learn. He learned about the history of the team, the players, the coaches, every detail. Then he used what he learned to make the team better. I watched him in the boardroom. He can be in the middle of a big meeting, but if one of the kids was on the phone, he dropped everything to take the call. He taught me that the family should be your top priority. I watched him treat janitors, security guards, and waiters the same way he would treat a VIP. He made them feel special because he knew they were. He understands that they are the people who make this country run. They clean, they cook, they build, they drive, they deliver. He told me, Herschel, make an effort to get to know people. Remember their names. That stuck with me. One time, I planned to take his kids to Disney World with my family. At the last minute, Donald said he'd like to join us. So there he was, in a business suit, on It's a Small World ride. That was something to see. It just shows you what a caring, loving father he is. It hurt my soul to hear the terrible names that people call Donald. The worst one is racist. I take it as a personal insult that people would think I've had a 37-year friendship with a racist. People who think that don't know what they're talking about. Growing up in the Deep South, I've seen racism up close. I know what it is, and it isn't Donald Trump. Just because someone loves and respects the flag, our national anthem, and our country, doesn't mean they don't care about social justice. I care about all those things. So does Donald Trump. He shows how much he cares about social justice in the black community through his actions. And his action speaks louder than stickers or slogans on a jersey. He keeps right on fighting to improve the lives of black Americans and all Americans. He works night and day. He never stops. He leaves nothing on the field. Some people don't like his style, the way he knocks down obstacles that get in the way of his goals. People on the opposing team didn't like when I ran over them either, but that's how you get the job done. I pray every night that God gives him more time. Give him 4 more years. He has accomplished so much almost all by himself on a constant attack. But there's still more work to be done. If you love America and want to make it better, Donald Trump is your president. He's my president, and I'm blessed to call him friend.
Did you also feel creeped out watching that? That looked like that. Okay, aside from the fact that that was a plan, obviously, there's just so many things wrong with this, and I do mean wrong with this. Number one, yeah, he would endorse Trump. I mean, a lot of players actually do endorse Trump. Keep in mind what I said a long time ago. The only people that actually like Trump, are rich people and corporations. They benefit the most under his presidency. So that him giving that presidential candidate endorsement was the GOP trying to win over black people, saying, "Hey, oh, Donald Trump's not racist. There's at least one black person that likes him. That's not Condoleezza Rice." But again, I'm not surprised by that. But again, Herschel Walker running for the Senate seat in Georgia. Joel Ossoff, that was his name. I'm sorry, guys. That just went right past my head. Between Joel Ossoff and Raph Warnock. But anyway, that also being said, he is running for the Senate seat in Georgia. And again, he doesn't really live in Georgia that much, although that's his home state. He doesn't know he doesn't explain his politics. He has no platform. He hasn't said anything else except that he runs to run for office, and there is Donald Trump right there endorsing him. That alone is very scary. Even more so that, again, this is the same people that did not want Reverend at the time, Reverend Raphael Warnock, to win because, racism. They didn't want a black man as a senator in a red state, which eventually did turn blue because of the huge voting turnout of African Americans that are the minorities. So again, I have been saying this. This is the GOP's setup, y'all. That the simple fact of the matter, they are trying to go forward and trying to do everything they can. Even in Texas, aside from that stupid abortion law that they passed their restrictive voting law, which will basically make it harder for minorities to vote. They're already setting up the roadblocks. They're already setting up the minefields. Why? Because they know voting matters. And I will say this all the time. If voting did not matter, why are they working so hard to make sure that you can't do it? Or it's harder for you to do it? You would think they would make it easier. You think, for the simple fact of the matter, we should have voting protection laws in place. That election day should be a federal holiday, so you don't have to worry about trying to work instead of just trying to work and then haul tail to the local voting house so you can go ahead and vote. Voting should be automatically registered. You shouldn't have to do anything except show your ID and vote. Or better yet, at the same time, make it easier. Make it mobile. There's smart apps that we can do. It is amazing at this point how we have not really grasped technology to make our lives just a little bit easier. Even more so in the sector of voting, because as much as Donald Trump and QAnon, the rest of the tinfoil has to hate to admit that, that past election, 0 counts of fraud. The minor counts of fraud that were caught were on the Republican side. And Republicans will swear up and down that the laws they're putting in place will maintain election integrity, but most of the fault's on their party. Figure that one out. But moving right along, guys, I wanted to say this story because, again, look, it's one thing to go after. It's one thing to sit there and accost people. But why are you going to accost people at your job? And I have to give this reporter credit for what he did, because if it was me, I laid him out.
And I believe Shack's in Mississippi. Shack, what part of Mississippi are you in, and what are you seeing?
Gulfport. We're in Gulfport, Mississippi, Craig, and I'll tell you the biggest sign, the biggest indicator that I saw this morning about the force of the storm last night is that the mail delivery has returned. We saw postal workers going out delivering mail this morning. Just a couple of minutes ago, people were walking their dogs. They're back on the beach right now, and that's the sense that you're getting, that the rain has stopped, the wind is still going there. I think we even have a random person going around. You know, I'm going to turn this way because, you know, we deal with some people every once in a while. But, you know, one thing that we are noticing is that the mayor said the curfew is still in effect. The curfew is going to be going on for at least until a period of time in which they can go ahead and survey all the damage. They did get some reports of some down power lines, of some trees that have fallen, or at least limbs that have fallen. So they're going to go ahead and do that survey to make sure that they're okay. Craig, I'm going to toss it back to you because we have a person who needs a little help right now.
Hey. We're going to check in with Shaq Brewster just to make sure all is well. There's a lot of crazy out there, a lot of crazy. And Bill Cairns, thank you as well. Again, we'll make sure Shaq's okay. I do want to note here for a moment, you probably saw or heard a few moments ago, one of our correspondents was disrupted by some wacky guy during his live shot there in Mississippi. Please report that Shaquille Brewster is doing just fine, Shaq.
And again, it is the level of crazy that actually happened. And I wish I could make this up. It is one thing to be literally in the hurricane's path to report on it. It's a whole other thing for someone else to come up, drive, park their truck, and then get in your face talking about, you need to report what's really going on correctly. First and foremost, if you're getting that close to me, I'm laying you out. I had to give that reporter, that journalist, credit, because not only did he handle that professionally, but I'm sorry, I've been told, you know, once they get in your space, once they right here, just catch them with one. I mean, you will be in the right. You defending yourself. But yes, that same man, because again, in the world of Karens, we gotta come up with a name for a guy. Karen was the name for all the Mayo women that decided that, you know, they were above the law and above reproach. We got above report above it all, because apparently I can say reproach. But anyway, we gotta come up with a name for the guys. I gotta come up with a name for the guys who think they're. It'll take me a while. It'll take me a second. It'll take me a while. I'm gonna come up with a name next podcast. But again, the same individual, right? There is an arrest warrant out for him because apparently he was able to get away for 2 counts of simple assault, 1 count of disturbing the peace, and 1 count of violating emergency curfew, because a curfew was in place in that state where he's in. And the funny part was, he's also could be in violation of his probation from Ohio because he traveled authorization. So it'll be amazing to see whether or not that man, like I said before, when it really comes down to this, y'all, I don't know what it is that some people, y'all forget. Once you're on camera, Twitter or any social media will find out exactly who you are. There's never been a chance yet. Happened with the girl in Soho that tried to accuse the young black man of taking her phone. It happened in New York. Where the lady was trying to falsify a police report against a black man when all she was doing is assaulting him and choking her dog at the same time. Once you're on video and the world can see it, it is not too far off from now that we find out who you are. And then, you know, the cascade happens. You lose your job, you lose everything. And for what? Just because you believe you're entitled to? Welcome to consequences, my friend. But speaking of other things, which was just, again, in the world of the crazy Mayo guys, I'm going to come up with a name eventually, I promise. This was also weird as well, as a Chicago police officer was detaining a black woman, for all intents and purposes, no reason.
It happens suddenly. A Chicago police officer grabs a woman walking her dog, but her attorney says she does not know why it happened.
She has no idea why he would attack her that fashion. It was wholly unprovoked.
Attorney Keenan Salter represents the woman in that video, Nikita Brown. Shortly after midnight on Saturday, Salter says his client, who is a black woman, was approached by a white Chicago police officer as she walked her dog at North Avenue Beach.
The officer engaged her in a discussion about leaving the park, which she was fine to do.
Now understand this.
Please respect my space. It's COVID.
Brown recorded her own video, but her camera was knocked down when for some reason the officer grabbed her. Salter says his client was the victim of racial profiling because there were other people out that night who just happened to be white.
He makes a very concerted effort to target her in a scenario where she's by herself, a woman walking after midnight.
I'm still waiting for more than a preliminary briefing. I'd like to get more facts other than the video.
Superintendent David Brown says the video may not tell the entire story and is waiting for the Bureau of Internal Affairs and the Civilian Office of Police Accountability to finish their investigations before taking any disciplinary action. The mayor calls the video straightforward and disturbing.
But I want to make sure that COPA moves this to the top of the priority list and gets this done. I think this woman deserves to have answers as to what happened.
On social media, COPA says it is aware of the video and it has started an investigation. At North Avenue Beach, Christian.
I have to ask this question. I have to ask it. You know, it's one thing, I know as the chief of police, you're like, I have to get all the facts. Okay, cool. His officer is gonna have a very hard time explaining how in the world he stumbled upon a single black woman who wasn't a threat, who did not have a gun, who wasn't trespassing, who wasn't being a nuisance, and yet decided to try to detain her. So yes, he's going to have an extremely hard time trying to explain it. But I understand from a chief of police standpoint, but sometimes the evidence is the evidence. Let's just call it what it is. So if he can't, I was like, what other reason would he have? Because and my thing is, she was by herself, which I keep saying this entire time, what's going to wind up happening is that we as a people we're going to start walking in pairs again. I mean, we should be doing it now, actually. But, I mean, for the simple fact of the matter is, we got to start walking in pairs because who knows what could have happened. Because, again, like I said before, if it wasn't for that video, that whoever was shot from a security camera, and then her phone was taken from her, which she tried to record herself. Again, if officers, argue with me if you want to, if officers are doing their jobs, then we would not have these issues. But that goes right back into what I say about retraining, mentally screening, and making sure we have the right people on the job and not just burned out individuals with a badge and gun and can think they can do whatever they want. Argue with me if you want to, but I'm just saying the truth is the truth. Eventually, I think it's going to come to that. I hate to say we're all going to come to that realization that he just harassed that poor woman for nothing. But moving right along, guys, I did want to cover this next story as well. And of course, this article I found funny was this question that's being asked because, again, you guys got to remember that FDA approved has Pfizer, FDA approved has approved Pfizer for their COVID-19 vaccines, which means that Moderna and Johnson & Johnson are not too far away. That being said, the question is starting to be asked, can you be fired for refusing to get vaccinated against COVID-19? Only because more companies these days are all going to start doing mandatory evacuations. I did talk about United Airlines was going to start doing it. CVS Health was going to start doing it. Federal workers are already starting to do it. And then most actual places, maybe not the large food places like Walmart and Publix and Kroger's and things of that nature, but eventually it's heading that way. Can you be fired for it? Yes. I mean, the answer is yes, because again, just like the university, just like the hospital that was in Texas. Yes, there we go. The hospital that was in Texas that I reported on not too long ago, where the nurses and other hospital workers tried to take the hospital to court because the hospital was introducing a mandatory vaccine. They refused to get the vaccine. The hospital fired them. They tried to sue for wrongful discrimination and lost. So again, yes, it's starting to get to that point. And I look, and again, this is only because, and I say this before, mandatory vaccinations are only going to happen just because people are exercising their right not to get vaccinated, which is fine. You have all the right in the world to not get vaccinated if that's what you so choose. But that also being said, however, your consequences you are responsible for your consequences. But your consequences of not turning around and getting vaccinated is a problem. And when it's a problem, it's everybody's problem. But you can't go out and about in the world because the world is moving on without you. The world is getting vaccinated. The world is pushing forth procedures and distancing and masks and cleaning and all of these things. Why? Because we're trying to beat this pandemic. But with that being said, companies are realizing, oh, if it's FDA, and also another reason why companies are pushing for mandatory vaccinations, because the simple fact of the matter, FDA approved means zero liability for corporations and companies to let go of people who simply don't want to get vaccinated. Zero liability. Remember a long time ago that corporations couldn't fire you because COVID-19 was real and the vaccinations were just FDA emergency sanctioned, which still meant that yes, they could be sued if you refuse to do anything under COVID-19. But now that FDA has approved at least one vaccine with two more on the way, yes, there goes liability. Because you guys don't, because a lot of people don't realize, as soon as they approved Pfizer, they started introducing mandatory vaccinations. It's chess, not checkers. At the same time, I'm not surprised that corporations do that. I'm all for it. I myself being vaccinated, I got no problem saying that. And in about 4 or 5 months' time now, I'll be getting the booster. Why? Because again, I want us to get back to some sense of normalcy. We will not get back to the normal we once knew, but we will get back to some sense of normalcy because the way we knew is long gone and now we have to adapt. But good luck with those that still want to not get vaccinated and still try to hold a job. Good luck with that. That also being said, guys, I did want to sit there and grab this last bit of news before we get to our feel good news segment, and that is America's price tag for 2 decades of war, nearly $6 trillion. Yes, trillion with a T. That's 2 decades of war in Afghanistan for troops, equipment, supplies, and everything else, and also long-term care comes up to a whopping nearly $6 trillion that we have spent in the wars in the wars in Afghanistan, Iraq, Pakistan, and Syria by the end of 2022. And you want to know what's messed up about it? War-related spending after 9/11 is this is even worse. Homeland Security, nearly $2 billion. Department of Defense, $2 billion. State Department, $189 billion. Interest on borrowing for the Department of Defense and the state, also a little over $1 billion. Increases to defense-based budget, nearly $885 billion. Veterans care, $465 billion. Veterans medical and disabilities, nearly $2.2 billion. Crazy, isn't it? Because after all said and done, when you add that in along with the care, that's nearly $8 trillion. That's going to come to more than $8 trillion. $8 trillion. And people are worried. And I hate to say people are worried about the wrong thing about Afghanistan, but understand, again, I will make the argument that President Biden did the right thing. Afghanistan was another Vietnam. It was an unwinnable war, and however it was going to end, it was not going to end peacefully, resoundingly, or with a Disney happy ending. It wasn't. But I will point this out. The next time I sit there and say that we could pay off the student loans for every individual. We could send every kid to college. We could do so much more because you know what? $8 trillion is the new mark now. If America can afford an $8 trillion war, if America can afford an $8 trillion bill for the wars we've been in, then student loans, universal health care, universal education, and just overall everything that we need in this country, it should no longer be a question of money now. It shouldn't, because we spent $8 billion over the last 2 decades, and the ones that have profited from the most, private contractors, military companies, and the industrial military complex. And guess what? The Department of Defense, aka the Department of Defense and the Pentagon that's wrong. The Pentagon has never yet passed an audit of explaining of all the money they've received and where it's went to. They cannot account for $1 trillion. Think about that. Imagine you've been given a massive budget and you have to audit yourself and you can't even account for a single penny. That's the Pentagon. And they just got a budget increase. Tells you everything you want to know. But with that being said, guys, we're going to move on to our feel-good segment because usually on How the Frack We Got Here, we usually cover a lot of things that are good, sometimes bad, sometimes we can lose your faith in humanity, but hey, it's the middle of the week, it's Wednesday, hump day, we're trying to get over to Friday, which is Thursday, and Labor Day for some of us who will be, you might have Monday off, good for you, but we want to leave you guys on a good note, some positivity, and I believe so by us sticking with Hurricane Ida's post-damage in Louisiana, that, again, this just goes to show you random acts of kindness go a long way with people.
Louisiana strong. Tonight, across Louisiana, the need is great, but so is the generosity. In LaPlace, Louisiana, volunteers Desiree Nye and Hunter Loque helping Darren Heiser evacuate from his flooded home with his dog, Sunny. Help is now coming in from all over the country. In neighboring Texas, Gallery Furniture and their sign, Louisiana residents sleep here free. They're collecting donations they will drive themselves to Louisiana, already raising $24,000 for residents so far. And in Hammond, Louisiana tonight,
hi, David.
The nonprofit Operation Barbecue Relief, making 50,000 meals a day for those in need.
Many without water, without power, just trying to get by right now, and a little bit of comfort food goes a long way.
Tonight, Americans looking out for one another. The need is great, and so is the kindness.
Yep, that definitely is. And like I said, if you do want to help out with the hurricane victims, you can definitely reach out to the American Red Cross. American Red Cross. You can reach out to them as they are coordinating efforts to get people assistance, water, food, electrical things they need. Definitely check out AmericanRedCross.com to see how you can help others. So that being said, it's going to do it for our midterm. This has been a good podcast so far. This has been our midweek review of How the Frack Got Here. I do thank everybody that watched, that liked, that shared. I certainly appreciate it. Before I do get out of here, I do have to do some shameless plugging. I do want to talk about my buddy Big BZA Dot, who has his own podcast as well. Avon Westman on Facebook, Big BZA Dot on socials, where you can find him. He usually does smoking trailers every Sunday from 6:30 to 9 p.m. And what are the smoking trailers? He basically likes to do trailers of video games, of movies he finds interesting, and therefore he wants to share them with you. He also has the RAF, which is like America's Funniest Home Videos. It's done by World Star, so definitely for the grown and intended. Every Tuesday from 6:30 to 9 p.m. He also does video gaming and things of that nature. Definitely check him out for him and other news, and also news on other podcasts stuff he might do. Definitely check him out. A. Devon Witherspoon on Facebook or Big BZA Dot on all socials. And take a breath. So, also, let me not forget my brethren out there, Ari and Guy present Geek Salad, which you can find them on Facebook and on YouTube as well, as they like to talk about all things of bleak and blurred and nerdy goodness. If I could find words, that'd be great. And aside from that, guys, check me out. The link at the bottom. You copy paste that in your browser. We'll take to my link tree for all of my podcasts. How the Frack We Got Here, the Optimus Podcast, and Get Bit. Of course, like, share, and repeat everything you see. My IG up here, BlackFox447. Definitely follow me there. I usually post things of inspirational movie and television reviews, and sometimes working out. I try to get in shape. I'm in shape. I like to get in shape. But definitely follow me there. And aside from that, guys, like I said, COVID-19 is real. Please, oh please, take care of yourselves and each other. Get the vaccines if you haven't already got them. Please wear a mask when you go out and do your best to protect yourselves, because it's not always about you. It's about actually protecting. It's actually helping others to get back to some sense of normalcy. So that was a lot. I'm surprised I actually said all that in one breath. The last thing I'll say about How the Frack We Got Here, it's all about staying informed. We are not trying to change minds or persuade people. We are simply trying to give you all the information, allow you to make up your mind for yourself. We do a lot better society once we're informed. We're informed. We are progressive. We move forward. We try to right the wrongs of the past and try to show that we can learn and grow as a society by electing our first Madam Vice President who is Black. Still from Michelle Obama in 2024. We need you, Michelle, more than ever. You are such a national treasure. But that being said, guys, that's going to do it for this. If you're watching this on Planet, please comment if it's live. Aside from that, take care of yourselves and each other, and we will definitely get through this. Peace.